Pillars of Eternity continues. Welcome back, everyone, to what is likely the last episode of Pillars of Eternity. Thank you for taking this journey with me. And sometime down the road, I'll go back and we'll read some lore. Maybe I'll do it before we start Pillars of Eternity too. Read some books. Kill the 2 dragons that I ran away from like a little girl.
I can't see much, but I hear a noise like a pig choking on wet feed. So, I guess Durrance is breathing at least.
Souls are lighting the place up for me.
Full of surprises, aren't you?
I would have brought a torch if you'd asked.
We light our own path now, Watcher.
Can you do that again? I had something in my eye. I missed most of it.
I just busted the biggest nut ever! Maybe you can get some last minute crafting done here? I don't know.
This thing isn't doing...
What is it? As you wish.
Okay. Wayo! Shadow drakes and shit. Yeah, better yet, let him go towards Lug Lug. Works for me. You got missiled the fuck up. Chalky bits of bone break away from beneath your fingers.
You can trust me.
Ain't that special?
Alright. Found us some plus 15 attack speed gauntlets. Gauntlets of swift action. We already got these things.
Of course.
The shadows in the cavern suddenly lengthen and swallow you. When your eyes adjust to the darkness, you find yourself amidst what must be another vision. You're surrounded by mist. The ground feels springy under your feet. You imagine that as soon as you take a step, the soil behind will erase all trace of your passage. As if on cue, the mist... Hey, cat, I'm trying to read, asshole. As if on cue, the mist before you cleared just enough for you to take a couple steps forward. You do, and the fog closes behind you. You continue for several minutes in this manner, one step at a time, never seeing more than the ground right in front of you. Eventually, rays of light cut through the haze, and you find yourself facing a canyon wall. Eddar's head twists suddenly, as though something had flown in front of his face. What's that? Something whizzes past you just as you turn. You catch another whir of movement. Out of the mist flits a shape, small and round. You think you see another and another. They tickle the corners of your testicles. You turn back to the canyon wall. The sun shifts along its path, and what looked like a smooth rock face is the hollow of a cave. A figure steps out, its features shifting and changing before your very eyes. The figure transforms from male to female, from Orlin to Amua, its bones lengthening and its fur receding into its flesh. The only detail that remains constant is the smooth, eyeless face. The whizzing, rushing shapes from the mist converge on the figure as they form a spinning cloud and realize that they are eyes.
You understand the value of a mystery watcher, a buried scroll, a hidden truth. These are my ways. You unravel a thread, watcher, one you have lost and discovered over generations, and following it to its end has only brought you back to the beginning.
Speak plainly! Whale giggles, the strangely modulated sound that rises and falls as the god shifts from one form to the next. And trying the meaning from the end you have almost achieved, your search for the answers to your past have led you to another mystery, and one grander still. Another riddling god! Fantastic! The form of the question prepares the seeker for the answer, Watcher, and while you seek to repair your past, Wodika seeks to restore her future.
A nebula of souls, blind and brimming with potential. The answer to Wodika's question and the beginning of yours. What would you do with them?
I take it you've got something in mind. The clouds break and the torrent of rain washes Whale's features clean. His blank face molds itself again, taking on the shape of something you've never seen before. Do not consign the souls to the face of some god's choosing. You found them, now scatter them across existence, their destination known to neither god nor mortal. Let them be lost again, new answers to new riddles. But what would happen to the souls?
None know. They could end up anywhere in the realms of gods or mortals, whole or divided. Discovering them again and charting their course through the ether will be a new mystery.
What end would that serve?
No end, Watcher. That is the purpose.
Huh? Farewell!
That is a word for endings, and this is but a crossroads. Even I do not know what you would choose.
Shadows from the new caves melt and spread across the landscape, covering you in darkness. When the light returns, the vision is gone. That guy's a pendejo! I don't think we want to jump across that bridge quite yet. Scatter some more darkness. Oh, you gonna do me like that, eh? Okay. Shields up.
Just like Mama.
Fucking disappeared.
What is it?
Of course.
Hang back there, Fritzy. So anxious.
That ain't gonna work.
I'll...
That ain't gonna work.
Here's a lesson to be... Yes.
As you wish.
And I believe this is it. Are you ready to take the oath to spread the word
Are
of
you
the
ready
gods?
to take the oath? To spread the word of the gods to the lost and heathen?
I'm ready to be a god.
I am trusting you to remain loyal to the gods in this. If you do not, you will have greater powers than me to answer to. But you will answer to me as well. I wouldn't ask this were there any other choice.
This is a missionary, same as I was. Taught the wrong Osionis.
Got your tongue?
You are ready to give a confession?
I am ready to hear one from you.
Hey. Doesn't that just beat all? Here I was, wondering all this time whether all these terrible things were people's fault or the gods. Turns out they might be the same thing. Wonder how things would have gone different 15 years ago if the Raid Sarens had been told their god was made in some forge or kiln someplace. Would we still have gone to war?
No point in wondering about what we'll never know.
I could see the rebellion still happening, but I don't know that they would have invaded.
He looks down at the ground, drumming his fingers against the side restlessly. When he speaks again, he seems half himself.
I don't know. When Woden left for war, we, had a fight. As brothers will.
What about?
About him going off to war. He was set on it. My parents warned him. They said you get a new country with every trip across the border, but your god, me? I said, by the time I
let him not be the same shit. Let's go, man.
Mess we gotta straighten.
Yes?
He's talking about the same shit we've already talked about.
To. Our whole lives, and many lives before that. And it's led us to put our faith in a pantheon of gods that never deserved it in the first place.
The Aguithians were right. People are fools and can't be trusted without some kind of authority looming over them.
I'm surprised to hear you say this. It seems that much harm comes from imposing authority where perhaps none is needed. We've seen the atrocities that members of the Leaden Key have committed without even understanding why or for whom they act.
For once, the half-souled elf is right. To live in ignorance is to allow the gods to have their way with us.
I've also been thinking.
There won't be much left of Theos by the time you're done with him, if I know how you operate.
That will leave the Leaden Key headless. Perhaps it's best it stays that way.
Do what you think is right.
Then let's face Theos. When this is all over, I'll make sure that no one is able to commit his abuses again.
I like the misery. Alright, let's get a full heal rest in here. Darkest Trow Thai cookies. Ah, fuck this, let's go. We got this.
Of course. Hey.
I'm gonna solo this bitch! Come to a circular room, grand and domed. Its walls lined with adra and trimmed with copper. At the far end of a great pillar of adra pierces the floor from below like a ragged spike, its shimmering texture giving the illusion of boundless depth. Your thoughts are yours and not yours, and they are all questions. At the base of the pillar stands Theos, a look of concern on his face as he notes your approach. You have something you want to ask him, one question above all others, spinning madly in your mind, but you don't dare ask it yet. You need some admission from him first, some hint of the veracity of your suspicions.
You are far from your post, Inquisitor. What brings you here?
The machine behind you, what'd it do?
It has many uses, but its purpose is to bring structure to the chaos that surrounds it.
What is this place?
We are in a sanctum holy to Utica. There are others like it in service to the other gods. I come here often to pray for her counsel, and in this space I may be assured that she hears me.
Was Iovara telling the truth?
That woman sought only to destroy the foundations of peace and civility that my people sacrificed everything to build.
All these statues, who are they of?
They are monuments to Utica's greatest servants among my people. I hope to join them myself one day, but my work is not yet complete.
Was the entire Inquisition based on bullshit?
The Inquisition was based on the need to cut the flesh from a rotting wound.
You are shaky now, having lost all patience for tact. No more evasions. You have to know everything you believed, everything you have done for the gods. Did you lie to me when you said I would be right as long as I did what the gods would want? Vale says nothing. Are there no gods?
What is a god? A higher power? A rewarder of good deeds and punisher of the wicked? Something men can turn to in their darkest moments when their days seem only like bridges from one tragedy to the next. Our gods are all these things.
Are there no gods?
We are in a sacred place within earshot of the gods themselves. This is not the time. You've been through much these past few months.
Months? I've been at this shit over a year.
You will return home and you will rest. When you feel you have recovered, you may rejoin us at the trials. The Inquisition is far from over, and I will have need of you. There are many who continue to spread the lies of the apostate. The Inquisition will not end until we have pronounced judgment on all of them.
His eyes linger on you, and there's no mistaking the threat behind it. And your rage shrinks to the image of an iron wheel in your mind, monolithic and caked with the dried blood of thousands. You do not ask your question again.
How did you find it?
I did it! It was the Lady Webb!
Another in a string of acts of petty defiance. For all her knowledge, she always preferred spite over reason.
You put her out of her misery!
That woman did more in her misery than most accomplish with their clear, ignorant minds. If only she had obeyed. Such a waste of rare talent and intellect.
Her talent and intellect were too great for her to live as your servant.
What of your cohorts, then? They have followed you to their deaths. Is it loyalty that brings them here? Or is it, as my agents suggest, that they have no direction of their own? You worshipped Aethys, did you not?
Your spies are good. What gave me away? The cape?
Yet when your god needed you the most, you chose your country.
Utter frowns, irritated.
We were being invaded. Not by anyone who was acting like a god.
Then I should think your hometown gave you a hero's welcome when you returned.
They made cake. Hard to blame people for losing faith when it's the gods who are misbehaving.
The gods argue over how best to prevent Kith society from destroying itself. These disruptions would not be necessary were mortal instinct not so diseased.
Durin stares at Theos with a beast snarl. Theos watches him calmly.
You built a weapon that delivered exactly as promised.
I served my goddess as you did yours.
Yet the other builders were slain. 11 of a dozen. Why not you? Were you somehow different? Redeemable in your god's sight?
Whatever desire I had to be redeemed in her eyes was weakness, purged by the Watcher's sight.
Or was it merely that your goddess wanted you dead as well, and your delusions of importance prevented you from seeing the obvious?
A whore's beguiling charms, nothing more. But the spell's broke now, Theos. The trial's over. I know friend from foe. And I've come here now to see a foe repaid.
You were able to destroy a god because another god wished it. Without her hand to guide you, you could not strike at a god any more than you could strike the sky. You are impotent, and not just from the pox. State your name and purpose, young acolyte.
My name belonged to the gods and my hand to their service.
Eval's eyes darken.
You serve none but yourself. Without contact with your order, you can have no higher purpose. Only the base concerns of the flesh. You have cast yourself from our ranks.
And I should have done it years before. I'd rather live in uncertainty than servitude.
And that uncertainty would lead you where it leads everyone. To doubt, to emptiness, to the many cruelties inspired by disbelief. You will have to forgive your Grandmaster for remaining skeptical of his initiate's choices.
Theos returns. The devil of Karok stare with contempt. He shakes his head.
A murderer given life beyond her body, beyond her own selfish purpose. My dear, you embody the very reasons Kith should not play with the tools of the gods.
Last I checked, it was your gods who set us up to destroy each other.
Your city was spared by a god. It was destroyed by Kith, who took matters into their own hands. Such are the excesses my order seeks to correct.
By tearing the souls out of little babies? That's some strong medicine.
Strong and lasting, the way it must be. We do not indulge the whims of bloodlust as you do. All we do is for the sake of a cure. You are here.
Okay. You are here because you are lost.
Better in your next
Gods
lives.
cannot reach everyone. I'm afraid you may fare better in your next lives.
I gather you have had your soul awakened. Why else would you shadow my footsteps like some stray mongrel? You think I have something to offer you, but our business was concluded long ago.
Our business will conclude when you have told me all I wish to know, Dick Licker.
I answered your questions once. That your soul is not fit to accept the answers is of little concern to me. I lied to no one. Not to you, not to anyone. The gods are real. They are everything we need them to be, and the world is better for it.
You have lied to everyone. Yourself most of all.
I have no illusions about the costs involved. But what your brief lifespan obscures is that it is what must be done. The heart of this country has skipped a beat, nothing more. I have done far worse. I plunged the peaceful kingdom of Telosus into civil war. I slew the monarch of Desantio, whose people never knew hardship under his rule, and replaced him with a cruel despot who brought them to ruin.
I am the mighty Luglug, ruler of Athos. Killer of all that is the Dark Sun. Killer of all that is might and magic. Many worlds have I crushed, and now I will crush your Theos.
When plague arrived at the great city of Arborensis, I saw to it that the cure did not. They piled their dead outside the city in heaps that rose above their walls.
I don't see how that matters. Concerns me. None of those places exist still.
Precisely. Their histories are droplets of water, falling into an endless sea. They are significant unto themselves for a moment, and then they are gone. There was a time, back when your soul was still a shapeless mist, when the world believed only in false gods. Thousands of them. Gods that told them to take slaves. Gods that told them to make war upon their neighbors and devour the slain. Gods that told them to burn their children alive and cover themselves in the ashes as a sign of their faith. But all that changed when they learned of the true gods. Our gods. All those misshapen, bestial instincts melted beneath the radiance of our god's majesty. You could see it in their eyes. That dull emptiness replaced with the glimmer of a kindled spark.
You led them to overcome their nature.
No person can overcome his instincts by himself. Only with the aid of a god, someone he will respect and listen to, even against his every impulse, does he stand a chance. Have you imagined this existence? The one the apostate would have created. We are not all so virtuous as she. Without our gods, the most wicked, the most tyrannical, they would take that power for themselves. But more than that, it would be a hollow existence. All mysteries forever unanswered. All purposes constructed from meaninglessness. No endings to bring closure. Only a wheel, turning without mercy, grinding our spirits to dust.
If that's how it has to be, then so be it!
If you would welcome a wretched and lifeless existence, then by all means. But I will not see the rest of the world saddled with such a curse. All I have seen, the millennia of experience. I will not be dissuaded from this course.
You are blind to think yours is the only way. You are controlled by your own doubts.
We are all controlled by our own doubts. Better that we should be relieved of them. With your soul and thousands of others, I will see this world purged of its suffering. Hear me, Woodica. Your servant calls for aid.
I got your Woodica right here in my pants, dickhead!
Roak 10!
Ow! My balls! Holy fuck me! You guys want to join my party? Wodica's judge and Wodica's headsman. Alright, we want to get you the fuck back. Now the reason we're not attacking Theos is because until the statues are dead, he just keeps regenerating himself, so we want to try to wipe these fucking things out as quickly as possible. Holy fuck, man, he already killed that guy? That's not fucking good start at all. Let's go ahead and keep him distracted here. Fucking Ronstock's down. All three of my mages are down.
much.
This... This thing isn't doing the... This thing isn't doing...
Beyond sea, Moed, Arthek Wood.
This thing isn't doing the job.
Ulu Then.
This fucking guy is strong, man.
This thing isn't doing the job.
Lava Ruby.
Alright, brute force ain't gonna do it. Alright, let's try this again. Trying to keep Dickhead distracted here.
So much.
Damn, should have cast that off the get-go.
That's not very helpful.
So much.
This thing...
Moeth equal.
Lava beyond sea.
The good news is my two mages aren't dead. No, we don't want to do that. You can see why I picked a bunch of crushing resistance now and attack against statues and whatnot. Are you casting the resurrect? I guess fuckhead fucked it up. Whatever you do, keep Lug Lug alive. It drops motherfuckers way too fast, dude. Jeez, I can't imagine this on the fucking hardest difficulty. It's gotta be insane. Thought I already cast that.
Mow it.
Alright, that dickhead's down. It's time to focus fuck this guy.
Art that worth it?
You need to use our fucking crazy shit here. Watcher gives her for a glimpse in the afterlife, displacing their soul momentarily paralyzed and leaving them sickened. Fucking go all out, Lugsty. Go all out, baby. Got any more than, oh man, Hand of Wheel and Woes? I don't think you can knock down this guy, but... Right, what does that do? Appears in the sleeping memories of previous lives, drawing upon their powers to enhance all of his or her attributes.
Thank
We're close. The problem is that Aloth is no longer on our side.
This thing is doing its job.
I fear we've lost the angry one.
We got him. At your feet rests the body of Theos, hollow and dense wrinkles shaped by the silent shouldering of the eternal burden now smoothed across his color-drained face. His soul remains still for a moment, defenseless, its energy expended in defeat. It lies sprawled across his body like a dust shroud.
That's the servant down, and the mistress still to go. A good start, worthy of being built upon.
Some point, you have to look at the things your god is telling you to do. Ask yourself if it's worth it.
He spent his lives, more than any of us will ever know. For what? Binding the world to a lie. Could a man like that ever be redeemed?
Think he got sick of it all after a couple thousand years? Or did Woodica keep him on the leash?
Let's explore Theos' soul. With a deep breath, you plunged into Theos' soul, and where the Brackenberry had been a maze of narrow corridors and dead ends, now it's an expansive and borderless. Its walls crumbling into heaps like the ruins of the Egwith as you pass through them. You travel for what seems like ages, rushing to a known destination, a memory you glimpsed once before. At last you see it, no more than a pinprick of light at the end of the long tunnel, expanding slowly at first and then quickly as you near. You come out to the room you are standing in now, but it is new and pristine and filled with people. Thousands of them, all turned toward the great Adra pillar and the machine that encases it. Theo stands at the machine, and you are one with him now. You look out at the crowd and the faces of shriveled old men and cherub-cheeked little girls, and mothers bouncing infants to quiet them, and fathers clasping their children's restless hands and watching you with somber acceptance. A woman with tears in her eyes gives you a small nod. You turn back toward the machine, your breast constricted beneath the weight of the unwanted knowledge, preparing yourself to set out alone on a journey without end. And close your eyes and open them again to find the machine still in front of you, beckoning. You take your place in front of it, and place your hands upon a large mechanical disc at the base of the great crystal column and speak a single word. Giant rings creak to life, building speed, setting arrays of carved draconic mouths aglow and sending tremors through them and through the platform beneath you. The entire room shakes now with the force of an accelerating machine, all sound drowned out by the deep, deafening thrum. Brilliant tendrils of light arc outward from the pillar in all directions, and you look over your shoulder to see them engulfing the crowd, burning them brightly like hot iron. One by one the tendrils disappear, leaving ashen effigies where people once stood, many of them disintegrating into gray heaps under the stress of the tremors. You look above to the Adra pillar, and the glowing spherical mask has begun to coalesce atop the column where the arcs converge. It grows and pulses, translucent and bulbous, like some immense chrysalis, suspended in slow rotation as though it were being spun from the arcs of light. As the last arc disappears, the spectral mass hangs a moment, no longer rotating so bright that you must shield your eyes with an outstretched hand, and it seems to you as though it is looking at you. You bow your head in acknowledgement, and look back up to see it melt into a pillar like warm candle wax. The pillars flare with a flash of light, bright as the sun itself, then fade to darkness. The machine slows down in an abrupt halt, and when the last echo of its grinding cogs has passed, the chamber is still and you are alone. From all sides, reality begins to bleed in through the memory, and you find yourself in your own skin once more, looking down at Theos' lifeless body. You sense a listlessness to Theos' soul, an overwhelming fatigue that hinders its immediate escape and makes it vulnerable to manipulation. You feel as though your victory has given you some kind of hold over it, and you are able to do with it as you please. Our options are to return it to the cycle. You will remember this, Theos. Remember that no man can hide the truth forever, and all you've done was done in futility. Your memory shall be your penance. We can tear a soul apart. I do not envy you, Theos. I, of all people, realize the sway memories can hold. It is time you were granted peace. And we don't want to give him peace. We can banish his soul to Rieth Emin. Theos, the ninth Arcanon, or whatever the fuck that is. Theos Ix Arcanon. There can be no forgiveness for your deeds, only justice. You shall escape judgment no longer. We can destroy all of the memories contained within. Your memory makes you a slave to your own past. Perhaps it can be undone. It can't be undone, but it can be forgotten. It shall trouble neither of us any longer. Or we can tear his soul apart. You have caused me great suffering, Theos. You do not deserve to exist. All these seem pretty good. Alright. Let's rip his fucking soul apart.
You have caused me great suffering, Theos. You do not deserve to exist.
You reach out for Theos' soul, and you can feel its frailty and defeat. Its texture like a coarse and threadbare cloth on the brink of disintegration. You insinuate yourself between the threads, pushing and weaving apart, unraveling the stitching until it's bereft of structure, a formless heap bound together by nothing at all. In the midst, you dedicate your focus to a single idea, and that idea is to shatter. You concentrate, and as you concentrate, you feel a force building within your soul, an outward pressure that strains against containment, threatening to rupture your spirit. When you can contain it no more, you transfer it into Theos' soul all at once and release it there, a detonation of will that expands in all directions, driving out the remnants of his essence, scattering into nothingness. You can feel his presence no more. In the stillness that follows, a single word echoes through your mind. A word you spoke when you were with the one with Theos in the ancient memory. You realize it was the word that activates the machine. Alright, we're all back here. You guys all want to talk again?
Theos, he had hold of your soul from a long time back, seems like. You get what you needed from him?
I'm beyond those needs now. I'm the shit.
Feels good, doesn't it? Got enough to worry about as it is. You'll be feeling better soon then. Good. That's real good. You got it figured out what you're going to do about all that?
Yep.
Got a lot of people out there thinking they've been abandoned by their gods. There's not much that'll put the fear in you more than that. You can take my word for it. If it was in my power, and I know it's not, but if it was, I'd find a way to give them the courage to face it. Not because they think there's some god looking out for them, but because they've just got it in them. And after what you've been through, though, I'm sure you got your own ideas.
Goddamn right I do.
The end of the road greets us at last.
No shit.
You fared well, Watcher. Better than any Watcher has right to. Seems you were a field in need of a flame's cleansing. Would that my own trial had produced such an outcome. I had figured myself for the field all this time. But you were the field, and I the darkness. A lesson neither of Durance nor of Margarin. But with that trial's end, a new one begins. A god's trial. And I will stand in judgment without mercy.
Yes? Astounding. I always knew the Leaden Key stood for something big, but I didn't quite realize what I'd gotten myself into. And now, you're in the middle of something even bigger. The decision that will affect millions. But even if you send the souls somewhere specific now, who knows what the next turn of the wheel will make of them? We can't really control what happens to them. Nor should we try. I had to see the monster Theos had become to realize that.
Maybe so.
It's your decision, of course. And whatever you—
Shut up!
As you wish.
With your companions bearing witness, you step up to the place where Theos once stood before his people long ago. The great machine lies in front of you, idle and ready. You have seen this machine and the others like it in operation. You understand how it works. It is a device for directing souls. As a watcher, it would be simple matter to influence the direction. Though as big as this machine is, it may be the last thing you ever do. I'm gonna save my fucking game just in case I make the wrong decision. Cause this is the motherfucking end of this game.
Yes?
There's a shrieking of stone grinding against stone as old cogs loosen and begin to turn. You have only moments before the souls will be sent into the Adravane. This will be your only chance of redirecting them. Alright, so for some reason this didn't pop up the first time, and it should have. As you approach the machine, the path underfoot suddenly changes to a cobbled road. If you hadn't experienced visions like this already in Tir Everon, you'd be tempted to believe that the machine had sucked you into it and deposited you in the middle of nowhere. The sun blazes overhead, and the rolling meadows and thick forests of either side of the road could be anywhere in the Deerwood. A shrill cackle turns your head. Standing next to you is a malnourished man clad in threadbare loincloth and manacles. His entire body is stripped with lash marks, and there are scarred pits where his nose and ears should be. He stinks of stale sweat and unwashed filth. You noticed someone wandering down the road, but the figure's back is to you. The scarred slave has your attention for now.
I have observed you, Watcher, admired your taste for blood and the ease with which you spill it. You have labored at the pleasure of others. That shriveled hag in Hodrit House. Those well-bred thieves with their lordly pretensions. The wretched tribesmen playing out their fantasies of grandeur. And then you cowered and knelt before the gods themselves, begging one paltry favor and receiving riddles and visions in response. And now the gods give you orders and commands, even while you set out to fix what they cannot. Yet what have they offered you?
I get the feeling this is his way of giving you new orders on behalf of his own master. Be careful, Luglug. Given the breadth of the iron manacle, it's amazing that he can raise his bone-thin arm. But he does, and he points to a person walking the other way along the road.
The Exiled Queen is not an ungrateful patron.
You get a better look at the lone figure and realize that she's wearing robes, tattered and singed, but fine nonetheless. On her head is the silhouette of a broken crown. She continues walking, her pace slow but determined.
Finish the work Theos began. Strengthen Woodica with these souls and allow her to become the most powerful of all the gods, with you as her favored.
What do you mean by her favored?
The recipients of Woodica's blessings. She's always had a place for mortals of particular merit. If you help her now, she will become the most powerful of all gods, and you will be the one who made her so. Think of a lifetime of rewards you would reap. The only reward I wish is the joy of pulling bloody shards of her broken crown from a staff when I have finished with the trial. So says your companion, who's been abandoned by his own god. Do you really trust that little shitty dwarf to make alliances for you?
Helping Wodica would mean that the secrets of the gods stay hidden.
He rubs his hands together, his black eyes gleaming. Safely hidden, yes. From the violent overlords who would cease to fear punishment of the next life. From the heavy-handed masters who would answer to no one. The world needs some schemes. Or are there souls of kith so pure that you would snap the tenuous threads that bind society? And Theos, make a better overlord. This one of the gods' slaves. What would be left if the world were unchained from his mistress's lies?
I've been working against this bitch the whole time. Why would she thank me now after I've defeated her most loyal servant? It was kind of a puss, by the way. Only took me one reload.
The ragged hole in Skane's face wrinkles with disgust. Loyal and weak, Theos proved inadequacy when he failed to anticipate you. A plan exposed is worse than none at all. But you have proven resourceful, equal to the schemes of gods. Wodica has a long memory, Watcher, for both friends and foes, and she keeps her oaths. It's a deal! So this is the way to get the worst ending here, or the most evilest, I should say. I've explained the alternative watcher continue as a pawn of the gods or a partner of one.
Ooh, that sounds like good.
At the other end of the road, the figure stops. She turns her head just enough to look over her shoulder. Her face is mostly hidden, but one merciless eye peers at you from the cheek of rippled, scorched flesh.
It sounds like a good deal to me.
And one you will have many lifetimes to relish. Remember it when you approach the machine.
He continues down the road, and when the sun plummets toward the horizon, it sears the road with a blinding white-hot light. Your flesh burns and blackens, the scalding fluid fills your veins. You tear at your roasting skin, but peeling away the scorched layers is nothing to relieve your agony. At last the sun completes its descent, leaving you in darkness. When you come to your senses, you are in front of the machine, uninjured, but filled with a new power.
After all we've been through, this had better be a ruse, Watcher. My list of those deserving punishment have been growing of late.
Alright, now we should get the actual 6th choice. Disperse the souls into... No. There we go. Choice 5. Allow the souls to pass through the vein to Wodica. You close your eyes and expand your perception outward, taking in the immense totality of the tens of thousands of souls orbiting the chamber. Your grasp on the souls is tenuous. You find yourself fighting to keep them all within your influence, and you can feel them slipping away from you as the machine gains speed. A brief moment comes when it feels you through the hold of all of them at once, and their force is so great it feels as though they will tear you apart. In that moment, you dedicate your entire being to bending their orbit, channeling their flow in a new direction. You
At your
are
command,
a jerk.
The ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale, pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Theos used to enter Sun in Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Theos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Deerwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the goddess Wodica ultimately received the empowerment she had sought, albeit not in the manner she had expected. The swirling souls held captive in Sun and Shadow were swept into the great Adra pillar there, sent barreling down through the world's veins to places unknown to mortal sight. Though no word would reach your ears of their arrival, by the time you would return to Twin Elms, word had spread of a miracle on their burial isle, and pious Glenfathans were already streaming in from all over to observe the statue of Wodica there, its once broken crown, now fully restored. But for Deerwood itself, the last hollow birth had come and gone, and the country celebrated the lifting of Widewind's legacy, none the wiser as to what future costs its end might hold. Helia, who had expected the souls to be returned to the Hollowborn, was infuriated by your duplicity. The goddess of motherhood demanded new births in compensation, and made a bargain with Berith to trade death for new life. The skies of Deerwood darkened, blotted with swarms of birds and other winged creatures, called together to claim what the Sky Mother believed to be hers by right. For months, the people of Deerwood were forced to stay under shelter for fear of the vicious, unexplained attacks from the sky. The incidents left entire villages decimated and littered the streets of Defiance Bay with corpses covered in 1,000 puncture wounds. The loss of the souls you had promised to Entropy would be no setback to Remergant, nor to Andra, for the Beast of Winter trudges ever forward, and the will of the Lady of Lament is as unstoppable as the tide. In Deerwood, the weather quickly chilled. Unseasonable frosts destroyed the year's harvests before giving way to the coldest winter in memory. Many who survived the famine would soon freeze to death in their own homes. The oceans proved no safer. A barrage of squalls pounded the harbors along the Deerwooden coast for months, sending many ships to be forever lost in the depths of Ondra's domain, either mourned or forgotten, both to the lady's liking. It is said that Galawain is the enforcer of the guards, and is known to hunt down those who wrong them. To wrong Galawain, then, is truly to wake the beast, and the father of monsters took great umbrage at your broken promise to him. Along with Mogren and Abidan, Galawain embarked upon a more direct approach to claiming his quarry. In the months that followed, the frontier settlements of Deerwood were inexplicably attacked by packs of beasts and monsters, suddenly organized and unafraid to approach Kith on their own land. Many such villages were all but destroyed by the time troops could be dispatched from local garrisons. Those that weren't destroyed by the beasts of Galawain often found themselves at the mercy of the fires of Mogren. A dry spell throughout Deerwood led to a rash of forest fires on a scale not seen since the War of Black Trees, and many settlements paid the price for their proximity to the wilderness. In the cities, meanwhile, dabblers in animancy who had placed souls into golems and other moving vessels soon found that their creations had risen up against them. Such constructs terrorized their surroundings, killing indiscriminately and often in great numbers before being subdued. Followers of Bereth have a saying that life is a debt all must pay in death, and their god is known to always collect what is owed. In breaking your word to Bereth, a debt was created. Souls were owed to the cycle, and the agents of the god of inevitability would not be refused. An epidemic of unexplained deaths struck Deerwood in the days that followed the legacy. Most often, the dead would be travelers on the road, known to be a favorite target of Bereth's pallid knight, who exacts impossible tolls from those who have journeyed for too long. The elderly, too, seem to pass on in alarming numbers. But just as often, the deaths appeared to strike randomly, and for no reason at all. Those who sensed the involvement of the twinned god dubbed the calamity Bereth's Price, supposing it a payment for the end of Widewind's legacy. Lord Radric's zeal had brought him back to life once, but it would not do so again. Radric's destruction at your hands spelled the end of his suffocating rule over Gilded Vale and the surrounding area. In his absence, the village prospered, becoming a popular destination for new settlers anxious to leave Defiance Bay after the riots. Without a nearby ruler, it also grew more wild, with many settlers moving on as soon as they'd arrived, turned off by lawlessness that was excessive even by Deerwooden standards. Nevertheless, despite the challenges of living there, Gilded Vale had survived, and would continue to survive for the foreseeable future. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But order would soon come from an unexpected source. House Dominel, realizing that stability was good for business, brought the city's criminal elements in line through a systematic campaign of fear and intimidation. Capitalizing on a reputation for brazen fearlessness earned with the murder of a marshal of the Crucible Knights, the Dominels aggressively pressed their authority, murdering all would-be rivals and collecting coin from all transactions in the city, and becoming arguably the most influential house in all of Deerwood. Defiance Bay would not fare so well. Squeezed by the Dominels for every piece of copper, prices soared, and trade ground to a halt. Many commoners found themselves unable to make a living, or forced from their homes to make room for others more favored by House Dominel. Petty crime, prostitution, and vagrancy would reach new heights under their watch, and many would flee the city in droves for the more favorable economy of New Heomar. Though the machine atop Ter Noaneth had been drained of its accumulated essence, the machine had not seen its last use. Heritage Hill was rebuilt, and no sooner had the first families moved in to resettle the district than members of the Leaden Key, acting under standing orders from their Grand Master, climbed the tower and reactivated the machine. The initiates slew a handful of the new settlers under cover of night and watched as history repeated itself, the victims reanimating and devouring the survivors. After this second incident, the district would remain abandoned. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an Animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay, and few Animancers survived the first day. Many Deerwoodans took the end of Widewind's legacy as a sign, both that the gods did not approve of Animancy, and that the purging of Animancers in Defiance Bay had been enough to satisfy them. In time, their rage would subside, and a number of surviving Animancers remained in and around Defiance Bay, often taking to the wilds to practice their science without repercussions. The town of Deerford had seen the last of the cult of Scan. Dark rumors about the town's many curses quickly faded, and travelers soon returned. The destruction of the Eyeless and the permanent loss of Abidon's memory emboldened Andra. She considered the knowledge that Kith might have found, both of the origin of the gods and her part in concealing it, and vowed that such a calamity must never come to pass. She churned up a fury in her seas. Underwater mountains rose and fell, and the seabed was swallowed and spat out again by the great maws that divide the continents of Kith. Only a fraction of this chaos reached land, but it was enough to swell rivers and spread earthquakes throughout the Deerwood and Air Glanfath. Coastal towns suffered so that few noticed the damage that had been done to Engwithan ruins, from Thane Bog to Twin Elms. Thus, they sealed off the White Forge and abandoned their pursuit of Durgan steel. Durgan's battery became a trading post once more, and Stalwart thrived in its shadow. Stalwart's revival brought trappers, traders, and artisans from all over the Deerwood, and from Red Ceres too. Prosperity brought peace to the border region, as Deerwoodans and Red Serans alike left old quarrels behind. The Flames That Whisper clan found a cautious peace with Stalwart, particularly once the villagers heard of the aid the ogres had offered against the Eyeless. The clan moved back into the Russet Wood, and as Stalwart grew in prestige, the villagers formed a tighter alliance with their ogre neighbors. Within a generation, ogre traders visited Stalwart, and village hunters were welcome in the Russet Wood. Harmka's death had brought the Devil of Carrick little satisfaction. In time, her taste for vengeance soured. What replaced it was a hunger to feel something, anything, new. Summer had thinned the snowpack twice over when she felt the joint at her elbow first begin to stiffen. She turned her back on the hopes of animancy and civilization and walked east. She pushed through the mountains, past Red Ceres, and into the broad plains of Ishamiddle. She had forgotten what it was like to simply journey, no goal or destination in mind. Though she felt nothing more than the steady thump of her feet on the road, the endless horizons and grassy meadows were new to her. She measured her time in the gradual rusting of her body and was satisfied. Her movements slowed, but so did the world around her. Waist-high grasses undulated and tacked in the wind, as gradual as the tides. Sparrows and blackjays made steady pilgrimages across the sky, each flap of their wings a solemn salute. She could hardly move when she found something she had never seen before, the ocean. With the last of her strength, she pulled herself beneath the water, content at last to feel the movement of currents and the constant caress of the waves. Maneha never found the salt well, but she found a kind of peace in her duties as a gift-bearer and in the ebb and flow of her journeys. As she traveled and accepted burdens from Andra's supplicants, she saw in their eyes a kind of peace that she had not previously noticed. It was faith, not that Andra had freed them of their pain, guilt, and regret, but that she would, a little more each year. With that realization, Maneha learned to accept that Andra's ways were as gradual as they were inexorable. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every thane and earl in Deerwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Deerwoodinians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Deerwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. The Audra dragon known as the Master Below, her soul now housed in the body of the huntress Fallen Roet, passed out of Deerwood in relative anonymity, her final destination unknown, even to herself. She was last seen in the port town of Road's End, boarding a ship, an Audra talisman glowing about her neck. Pallegina had followed her orders from the Duke's bells, helping establish an exclusive trade arrangement between the Valian republics and the tribes of Erglonfath. With the Deerwood's people still weakened by Widewind's legacy, the Valian republics easily pushed their would-be competitors out of the market. The Deerwoods suffered as terribly from the lost trade as the republics benefited from it. Pallegina was honored for her service by being assigned as the personal guard of the Duchess of Spirento. Despite her success, she regretted the choices she had made along the way. Adair chose not to return home to Gilded Vale. Still most comfortable far from cities, he settled in Deerford, which, like many towns in the Deerwood, was beginning the slow process of rebuilding. Believing now that it was the obligation of Kith to be the leaders their gods had not, Adair was soon named mayor of the town, and under his guidance, Deerford soon began to prosper. He expelled the last of the Scanites from the area and drew new settlers with the offer of land, a trick he had learned from someone he otherwise preferred to forget. With each passing day, Deerford would come to more closely resemble the Gilded Vale of Adair's childhood, the one worthy of its name. When the dust settled in sun and shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Theos Ixarchanon, his former master. He saw where the Grand Master had gone wrong and what would be required to undo the harm Theos had wrought. With a flick of his wrist, he burned Theos's robe, headdress, and every other symbol of the man's power. Never again, he vowed, should Kith live in fear and blind obedience to an authority they did not understand. Armed with the knowledge and courage he had gained on his journeys with the Watcher, he set out on the long and lonely task of dismantling the Leaden Key. With the Watcher's goals accomplished and his own vows fulfilled, Kanarua sailed back to Dakoa. His friends and family found him much changed, for a pall had fallen upon the man, smothering his former enthusiasm. Called before the Lore College, Kana told them of the pain the Engwithan legacy brought to the lands abroad. He insisted that a search for answers abroad could only fragment the Rawatai people, as it had done to the Deerwood. His findings were met with much respect, and Kanarua's voice came to be considered an influential one in the growing move towards Rawatai's isolation. With Theos defeated and the souls released from sun and shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Deerwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Deerford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Deerwood and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance used Magrin's strength only until Theos had been cast from the world, and then swore off her influence entirely. Regret came to weigh heavily on his mind, and a man who had never previously lacked for words or opinions came to embrace silence and contemplation. He continued to wander, penniless and destitute, searching now not for the reason for his goddess's silence, but for a mechanism for revenge. The charred robes he continued to wear as a reminder that he had been burned by his goddess, and not just by the flames of the Godhammer. For you, the death of Theos brought an end to your waking visions, and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead.
All right, folks, wraps it up. One long fucking Let's Play. And another game order production for the books completed. We're going to speed these up. So let's see here. I should be in here somewhere. A's. We need to get to R's, I think. Now go backwards. There I am. There I am, son. Ron the Game Hoarder Museum, baby. It's a fucking wrap.